then we'll see what happens. So we are actually live right now, but I can't see it. So there's always this little, we're just waiting until then I can see us broadcasting. But anyway, hello everybody. I can't see if there's anybody here right now. Welcome to Self-Love Talks. Then we'll see what happens. Oh, hold on. So we are actually live right now, but bong. There we go, sorted. I'm not a technical genius and I don't care. But there we go, that's done and dusted. Welcome everybody to Self-Love Talks. Thank you for being here for this another amazing week, for another amazing guest. And I'm super excited. We've just been chatting and it's like I've got bubbles all up inside me already. I feel like, oh, I'm so happy right now to meet this wonderful woman, DARSHANA. We're going to learn how to say it together because I'm still getting there. But this beautiful woman, DARSHANA PATEL, is with me, who's an energy master. She's a Reiki person. She has gifted psychic abilities, I'm just reading here, and a spiritual teacher, and so many other things besides. And a mother and an amazing, amazing human being. So I'm really excited to introduce all of you to her. So please make her welcome and say hi. And how are you feeling right now?
I'm feeling excited to be with you, and just just like the tingling. I feel the nice buzzing after our initial just connection. I'm really delighted to be with you, Tara. Thank you so much for hosting and the space you're holding for all the different speakers for the expo. And thank you for all the work you're doing. I love the radiance that you're emitting and the space that you really cultivate and hold. So thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. It's actually completely effortless. It's
a good point. It's a good point.
Having fun, as everyone can tell. Like, it's just like, hey, who are we going to have this week? And it's you. And
I'm so delighted. I appreciate that.
Well, as I said a minute ago, I already completely love you. I think you're just a beautiful person, really wonderful to have you. And that I literally, all I knew was your name and some things that I'd read about you on the website, and literally like plucked you out of a list of people, went, I want to speak to her. And here you are. So it's wonderful. And I feel like we've got so much in common and I can't wait. I know you're going to talk to us about what you do, your turn your eye on, which I love how you've played with that. I love playing with words, don't you? And how you help people get out of their energy webs and out of the matrix. You're going to tell us how you got out of your difficult, I'm not going to give any giveaways away, but this very traditional direction your life was going, and that matrix, and how you transformed out of that. We're going to talk about your Talk in the Higher Self Expo, which is coming up in, it's in 11 days. Is it 11 days? I'm trying to do the maths. On the 17th. No, 9 days.
Yeah, coming up 9 days. You're right.
9 days, yeah, 9 days. You'll be doing that expo live with Zane. So many things.
But first, time.
Yeah, but first, and obviously we're going to talk about self-love as well and how that comes into it. But first of all, I just want to share with everybody what I was reading about you and my response to what I was reading about you, DARSHANA. And tell everybody how to say it properly.
If the accent on the first syllable with most Sanskrit names will get you in the pocket. So it's DARSHANA or DARSHANA, either two syllables or three, but DARSHANA or DARSHANA. Accent on the first, we're golden.
DARSHANA. I'm really, really terrible with names, but I'm going to get there because it's beautiful. And actually, we were just talking about this before we came on, for everybody out there who knows me already, you may not know that today is a really special day for me because it's my son's birthday. My firstborn turns 21 today, and his name is Darshan. And we don't call him Darshan or Darshana, we call him Darshan because that's how we say it when you come from Brighton.
I didn't realize his birthday was today. How amazing.
Birthday, he's 21. He's come of age today. My baby boy is officially a grown-up man, and quite an incredible man he is as well. Full power, indigo warrior light being. He's amazing.
Well done.
And I was just telling you about how he was born and why his name was Darshan, because those people who don't know, Darshan is about having the sight, having the revealing of the true sight, the truth, really, in a way, isn't it? It could, and in some ways, it's a gift to be. It's the revealing of a gift of sight as well. And I grew up in a spiritual community where we literally had darshan with the master, which is to be in front of the master and to, I don't know what happens, but it's just a bliss state. It's a total bliss state. Your mind disappears. There's no ego left, is there? It's just pure love, pure presence. And so I had that experience quite a lot growing up. And then when I gave birth to my boy 21 years ago on the floor in Brisbane, home birth, that's my experience of giving birth to this boy. So the name Darshan or Darshana means a lot to me. I really understand it. So I feel like I'm meeting another Darshan, a Darshana, when I'm with you, because you clearly, beautiful lady, have that light inside of you, have that sight inside of you. You've turned your eye on, bing. You can see, and your heart is a beautiful, bright, shiny light. So clearly that name fits you as well.
I really appreciate that. It's always, my guidance, inner guidance through, it was a lot of darkness in life. My guidance would always say, come back to your namesake. And I would always have to remember the story of how my name was chosen and what it meant. And that always became my North Star, because in the Hindu tradition, especially in my family, we name a child based on the alignments of the constellation at the time of birth. So the constellations each have a particular sound. So the, ra, sha, na were the mix of sounds that were in the cosmos at my time of birth. So to name a child based on the harmonics amplifies their soul's progression in that lifetime. So Darshana, there were like two of those elements that my mom had to have. And then so she wove the name Darshana very easily from those names. But every Sanskrit name will break down into particular resonances that you'll feel in the cosmic web of entanglement.
I'm gobsmacked right now. I didn't know that.
It's a system called Rasi, and in a lot of cultures, and I bet it's not only in the Vedic tradition. It's beautiful, right? Because it's singing the harmonics of the blueprint of the soul, time of place of birth. It's astrological, but then bringing in the sound component, which we know more and more now is the Western world, where I am here in Atlanta, gets the idea that we're resonant beings. And if we can nurture the resonance, then the soul gets to progress in its own divine dance. Like your son, the name embodied his essence. And now on his birthday, you're recognizing the embodiment of that beautiful essence. So,
and yeah. I'm sitting with you, another Darshana. I'm just like, wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm literally totally blown away. I had no idea. So how did you get, you said there was another meaning around your name. Is there a certain significance as well to those tones? Do they mean something else?
No, it's to see. It's to see the divinity within all. So when I remember, it's like reclaim the resonance of the name, it just reminds me it's like the word namaste, to really recognize the divine energy in it all. And that was the inspiration for Turn Your Eye On. It's a 0 point technology. Let me go the right way. Technology framework. I'm not a weatherman. I'm so terrible. Yeah, the left and right. I can't do that. But it was the inspiration for my work. Is the ions. I imagine my background is information systems engineering. That's my undergrad. And then I have a master's in conflict and 20 years managing and orchestrating global change programs. But earlier on, I was an information systems engineer, actually creating much of the infrastructure that runs the corrupted systems now on the planet, everything from healthcare, power, energy, banking, defense. So I've got a vision into many of the backbone systems, realizing everything is vibration and energy. We were going down a pretty dark trajectory. So then reclaiming more of that vibrational essence and alchemy, I created a model to help us relate to that site of remembering, to seeing reality as this beautiful, interconnected, entangled, pixelated, vibrational, harmonic, resonant equation that we're all emanating and receiving and oscillating in and dancing in.
Oscillating. No, I like that word. I'm dancing.
Every ion, what was that?
You said dancelating, and I'm like, no, that's a good word.
We'll have to use that. Dancelating. It's like the dance of the particles, right? The ions are just, they're swimming in a contextual energy. And so my offering is, what if we peel back, and instead of engaging change at the like, this is how it has to go form, you know, it's all about the form. What if it was back at the essence? Turn Your Ion is about coming back to the pixelated, entangled web of beautiful oscillation of particles, which to me is darshana, it's sight, it means to see. So Turn Your Ion is like, remember the sight of the vibrational essence of life. It's all in format ion. Information is literally, we're a construct of information.
That's a clever one. In format ion. Really cool.
Vibrate ion and format ion. So every ION word is telling us what we're doing with the entangled essence of life. And that is darshana, is to see and to hold everything as sacred, because it truly is. Everything truly is sacred.
It truly is. And it seems to me that you've not just got the spiritual eye of seeing and having the revelation of that sight, and that in seeing into the construct of creation itself and that consciousness, but you've also got the technical mind that has kind of mapped it into a system that I can see behind you. But that's extraordinary that you've actually mapped those systems for perhaps the not seeing, for the cover up, perhaps, for, because you called it like, you know, the controls construct, or the, you know, the others. What words do we call it? How would you
call it now? I would describe it as a cybernetic system. We, in this, there's a lot written about it. We as a civilization have designed a cybernetic system as simply strong and weak forces. And so we've allowed, through our own collective shadows, to build a system that amplifies values that may not be coherent as we know to be possible, when the divine feminine is like, whoa, wait, you can sit in the box, but if you sit in the box for too long, you're going to feel really limited. And we know divine feminine is always circular. So these are actually like a big infinity that has an exit point. And so it's the divine feminine that then disrupts the limitations of a particular perspective, and then says, make sure we're synchronized with that divine impulse.
And that's what ultimately brings us back to harmony. Now, I want to ask you about that in depth in a minute, about what you've created and that nature, the fabric of the nature, the consciousness and the construct of that consciousness, the feminine, the nature, the natural web, if you like. But first, can we dive into the unnatural one, the egoic created one, the manufactured one, the AI, artificial intelligence? Because it's not intelligent, is it? It's it's intelligence overlay that is actually kind of killing any kind of sense of real intelligence in people, where their lights are being not just, you know, dimmed, but utterly annihilated. And so that they're not seeing at all, and plugging their full attention into a complete false sense of intelligence. That's how I see it. And Yeah, tell me what you know about that. You said you were, part to creating this and you understanding kind of the fabric of that. One, how did you get there? What, like, that was one world that you lived in, and then you've exited and come into this other world. So we're going to do the crossover point of how you did that and to where you are now. But if you don't mind, I'm super curious. I'm like, let's go down that rabbit hole a little bit and go, what was that world like? What happens?
You hit on something really important first before I give the story, the artificial versus adaptive intelligence. I propose that humans currently, if we have a cellular device, are artificially intelligent because the cybernetic system.
This kind of cellular device.
Yeah.
This
The
kind of
cybernetic
device
system
that you're on.
if it has audio, video, if we're interacting with it, it is currently designed to, it knows our emotions, it knows what we're thinking pretty much. And
how does it know our emotions and our thoughts?
It's called sentiment analysis. If the camera's on, it is studying emotional reactions to images. So we know that beliefs are two things, right? It's the combination of, this is part of my awakening story though. It's the combination of beliefs are cognition and emotion, right? Which is creating a projection. So without getting too technical right now, I just want to show you, like, this is how this thing works.
Mm-hmm.
It will show us at the individual and collective levels. Because I was an organizational change person, right? I had to really understand the interior and exterior realities at the individual and collective levels to know how to orchestrate change. I saw it as manipulation when I was in 20 years of corporate, and that was part of the awakening was, wait, we're not allowing and nurturing growth and evolution of individuals. And that's what I started seeing in my career progression was the values, the underlying values of why we were doing what we didn't make sense. We would always be able to deliver the project and have the innovative outcomes, but it wasn't humanistically aligned. It was not planetarily aligned. It was not cosmically aligned. It was a fabrication of holding on to information, actually. And information, what is reality, is it's a persistence of patterns, and we are emanating, we are generating those persistence of patterns. There's essence and form, and our reality is the tension in between, like a rubber band. So as I was going through my career progression, I had the coolest, I look back at my resume and I realized the cool things I got to do in, at the time, I didn't know the corruption in banking. I didn't understand, like we just built things that we were requested to build.
And I'm sure you thought in your head as well that I'm doing something that's going to help society. I'm going to help people, not realizing what you were building. And what were those values, by the way? What were the values that all of that information structure is built on?
20% increase in revenue year over year. It ended up being service to the board of directors and the stakeholders at the expense of what makes sense from a perspective of how can we create a thrivable world in civilization, which I know to be possible. We have the intelligence, the solutions, and the heart and the muscle to make anything possible. And with technology, we actually don't need the muscle now. We just need the right heart and intentions behind it. So I saw, like, one of my early projects was writing software for one of the major banks' capital markets. So I got to see when we launched derivatives and real estate backed, all of the funny little offshoot 13 different programs that we launched at the time, and all the software logic, which 1 and 1 never added to 2 in these. It was always stacked for the house. Interesting projects. I worked on the very first, another major bank, global credit risk exposure management system. There are 2 of us for the first time, pulled in all the data for one of the biggest banks in the world. And we got to see the global debt. And then we created drill downs for the executives to see how much debt in each country, all the way down to the individuals. So I got a sense of how money flowed in the world. And then I also worked in other big companies, managing some of the financial systems that could span, for one company, it was 14 countries. This company, one of the biggest companies in the world, paid zero taxes. So I got to see how all that worked. So it's just like really getting into, whoa, something's not right. And then I got vision into the news and media. It just kept going.
Right,
Healthcare.
so it's just like one dark hole after another, because when you start, that's the nature of revelation, right? Of sight, is once your little pupil starts to open up and let a bit of light in, it continues opening up, and it's like, oh my goodness. So you can't go back after you start seeing that stuff, can you?
I could not go back. And I kept seeing that even the top companies, the employees were, it was becoming like artificially intelligent. Like, whoa, you're still innovating, but it's still in a box, and it's actually quite capitalistic and manipulative in the way we're doing this. I've realized marketing was about manipulation versus liberation of self and potential. So I just keep seeing we can build an adaptively evolving system, a civilization where we nurture self-actualization and not manipulate or constrain it for economic purposes. I really think we just got misaligned values that now we can step back and go, whoa, we built some things that just don't make sense anymore, and we know better now.
Well, we do, but we're naive. You're naive. You leave college, you do your thing, you get in a job, you think you're doing something really good, you're helping, you're all, you know, a lot of people do this. I'm helping, and not realizing that that naivety and that innocence of you're being manipulated. And it's like that wake up moment of like, hold on a minute. So when did that happen for you? What happened for you to kind of go, oh, I'm seeing all of this stuff in all of these industries, in all of society. What happened for you then?
There was a culmination of personal things that had been brewing, and then the tension of the kind of work I was doing. I loved what I did. I was at a major healthcare company, remediating a project that had gone awry for several years, and just the whole team had been demoralized. Like, it was a lot of recreating. It was basically healing a team so they could do what they did. But this was a healthcare company still pushing opiates through society, to be frank. You know, it was very broken in its values. So I was like going to work, having to hold space for this gorgeous team of high potential, high power individuals, love what they did, love the company they worked for. And then at the same time, sitting with that knowing of, wait, what we're doing actually doesn't make sense. I nearly died. I had 10 years of undiagnosed autoimmune disease that no doctor could figure out. So that was like, when I hear other people's stories, you know, you're just like, my body is eating itself alive, right?
How old were you when you were going through that?
Gosh, so I lose track of all my years. So God, it was such a big part of like a decade of being ill. And I've been well now for 6-7 years. So it's almost like a past version. So when I left corporate, I immediately knew my path was to follow my natural gifts. I loved what I did in corporate, but I found that it was my energy work. And then when I just launched a practice. So this would have been about 8 years ago when I left corporate. I immediately knew what to do. Everything fell into place. It was effortless. And then when I started doing the energy work, my body started healing. I started seeing even more clearly. I fell in love with every client and humanity again, and just realizing we're brilliant, beautiful beings who are just seeking to be a little better version every day. And we stumble and we fumble, and we can dance in that too. And we cannot have to be artificially put in these boxes anymore. And when we start to liberate that divine evolutionary potential, magic happens.
I agree. And you're going to tell us, I want you to tell us how you help people get out of that matrix, that web, that box, that construct, and emerge into their fuller potential and get out of that. But in a minute, because what was your catalyst? Like, for me, I was ill like you for 10 years, and I didn't want to be alive. I was leaving my body. My body was shutting down, and I just wanted to go back to spirit. And my catalyst was, okay, who's going to heal me? And I realized nobody else was going to heal me, not even my parents, who were healers. And I grew up in a healing center, and my parents couldn't heal me. And they actually were really sick and couldn't heal themselves at that time because they'd got burnt out healing everybody else. So this was my wake up moment. Hold on, who's responsible for me? Oh, I am. And do I want to be alive? Yes, I do. And I made that decision. And I also realized that there was a love inside of me that even though I wanted to let go, the love inside of me was not going to let go. And that led me on my journey to self-love and everything that I do now. But what changed for you? Because you have a daughter as well. You got married. You did the whole normal route.
Yeah, my normal route was a little abnormal in many ways with an arranged marriage at 19 that I had to leave. So it was like the idea of being in oppressive systems and abusive systems, quite frankly, were part of my trajectory. So it was actually interesting. In falling ill, you realize the gaslighting in the medical community. And so it was just even more like really punches when I'm trying to get better. It was the wake-up call when I was in the medical system trying to figure out what was going on. And then when I did get diagnosed, for me, we've got a family of Crohn's and colitis. Right. Great, sacral and solar plexus makes sense when we're marrying kids off at 19. Like, come on, you know? So what happened for me was, it was the, wow, well, I'm definitely not going to be on medication the rest of my life, like doctors you say. You tell me my diet change isn't going to make a difference. That doesn't make any sense. I'll put good fuel in my car, but you're telling me the fuel I put in my body doesn't make sense. So I started really, it was such a wake-up call in being in the medical system as someone who was deathly ill and getting no answers except medication. That just made me feel worse. So then that's when I had my wake up of, wait a minute, I'm going to turn this all around because I'm literally the only one who's going to be able to save myself. So I left corporate at that time, changed my diet, found people who kind of knew different ways of eating, like, wow, I might be sensitive to this. Wow, okay, I eliminated that from my diet. I feel wonderful, like simple things. And I literally started self-healing, but I had to recognize no one else had answers. They were following a flow chart that always ended in a drug. And trust me, since I worked for those companies, I know how all of that worked.
Designed, right? It's designed to end in take-hour drug. That's not going to make you better, by the way. It's just going to give you more other symptoms that we have no other drugs for.
Insane. Like, and then the pain pills, I'm like, yeah, I got a headache every day and nauseous, but I don't need to deaden the pain. I'd like to get to the root of the pain. This doesn't even help me. It was so fascinating to watch the prescription line up. And I'm like, no, rather suffer. I can deal. I can self-heal. I'll find an herbal remedy for that. Like, and it was amazing to watch my body respond. Now, Western medicine played an important role in putting the Band-Aid on. Like, for a good 3 months, it got me back on my feet. And then immediately I changed everything to ensure that I was getting to the root, which, quite frankly, I mean, even all these years, the emotional healing at the core of it all is what I realize is creating the distress in the body. Dis-ease is a real thing because our cells aren't able to be their eminent radiant selves if we're in environments that are toxic to the nurturing of our energy and our roots. And that's what I had to learn. Was, we were talking before that we started recording, the bifurcation that's happening right now of environments that feel loving and unconditional and supportive, and those that don't. And I think we're seeing that split happening. So some of us who have gone through these journeys, I think we got to witness what works and what doesn't. And then we got to be examples of self-sovereignty and power. And it took work, but wow. And then you meet others and you're like, you did it too. Awesome. It makes it even more possible.
Yeah. But what I love about your story and why I'm so fascinated by it is because I know that when you share your story, some people will really relate to what's going on for you. And I think when you share your story, you help validate other people of what they're experiencing. Maybe they've just started having those experiences. Maybe they're in corporate right now going, yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me either, but I don't know what to do. Or, yeah, I've got an autoimmune system disorder. You know, it's got a bunch of different names, but essentially you're checking out. You don't want to be in your body. Your spirit is not fully intact with your body. Loads of different names for that, loads of different symptoms. But it's disharmony, it's dis-ease, right? Exactly as you said. And people can recognize, I think, and this is why it's so wonderful that you come on here and we're going to learn more about your story and then what you did, like your solutions, if you like, and how you help other people. But it's like what I'm really getting a sense of is this, what you called the artificial intelligence, that program, you know, and our cells are not going to be happy when we're trying to find our harmony and our friends and our love and our peace and then we've got this artificial intelligence beaming in at us constantly, right? You should do this, and it's constantly taking us away into that artificial realm that feeds the machine, that lines the pockets of these other people that don't have our best values at heart. They show it on their marketing that they do. They use all the right words, trust us and we care and all that nice stuff and the pretty pictures, but you know better than anyone right now, like better than anyone I've ever interviewed. Actually, you've been right in it. You know how that's constructed and what it's constructed for. And I think it's really important that you're sharing these points so that people can recognize that and go, oh yeah, that's, people suspect these things, but maybe they doubt themselves and say, oh no, I shouldn't say anything and I shouldn't feel that way, you know?
You're very right about that. I remember, because it's only probably in the last year that I'm reclaiming what I experienced in corporate, because I had such a passion and love for it. And I just knew my body couldn't handle it anymore. And I didn't quite know why. But now in the, reflection that I've had the last couple of years in my own deeper self-healing, I really came to terms with what I had witnessed and what it felt like. And I didn't have words for it, because it's like you're being, the term gaslit is really, I think, the only thing we have here that describes that. Wait, something feels off, but I don't know what. And in the model, it's like you're having this emotional hit of cognitive dissonance. There's a dance happening where the thinking isn't clear, but you're feeling something. It's almost the reverse of cognitive dissonance, is emotional resonance. There's something else beckoning you. And it's a matter then of recognizing, I had to see what was it that I was in that was feeling constraining or misaligned in my personal values. And I really do think there's, as I'm kind of getting, I took 8 years to really focus on my energy clients and building this out in my non-working time. And so I'm just now getting plugged back in day-to-day, like real life and where people are. And I can see the confusion, like this doesn't feel good, but I have to keep doing it. And I think many of us now are examples of, you don't have to keep doing it, but it takes courage, courage. If we look at the etymology, the core part means heart. And to me, it's like the rage of the heart, the burning yearning of the soul goes, no matter what, I got to check out of this artificial box and I have to lean into my evolutionary impulse. And that was one of the ways that I just kept having to trust that everything was going to be okay. So I think right now people might be really seeing and feeling the contrasting perspectives and values. And I always say, if you can question, why do we do what we do? Or why do I do what I do? It'll get us into the how we know what we know. And then that's the root of change itself.
I love that. And also, like, your intelligence, you loved expressing your genius. I think that's what you loved about corporate, is you had a place where you were encouraged and paid to be your genius, until you go, okay, hold on a minute, but I'm in a box, I'm restricted, and I'm working for somebody else's agenda that's not for the agenda of my soul, the agenda of my heart. And so your intelligence is being, I don't know, bought, I suppose. It's being channeled in a direction that's for other people's benefit, but not really your benefit, thus your illness, or the benefit of other human beings, right? And that's why your heart's going, alarm bells, something's wrong.
You're
And for
absolutely
you
right
to
about
just
that.
re-own your own genius, re-owning your own inner intelligence, your intelli-key, that inner knowing, reconnecting to the intelligence of your soul, of your spirit, of your heart, of your truth, aligning your mind with that and going, ding, hold on. This is like, that's your genius. That was your intelligence. And you're like, the most intelligent thing is to actually find a way to be healthy and strong, and to find a way to express your genius in a completely different way, because you've got an incredible mind. I can see how that's operating, right? These things that you've done, taking that intelligence and that genius and then putting it into the natural orchestration of life and the matrix of Gaia, the matrix of nature. Wow, like that's amazing. That's amazing. I mean, yeah, I think that's incredible.
I appreciate that reflection. It's been a journey. And I always say, like, just recognizing I don't know what I don't know. And there's a humility that comes with the stripping away of layer upon layer, leaving a marriage as I had to, that was quite oppressive, nurturing a child. You know what it is to nurture a child. You got to keep weeding your garden to ensure you're like nurturing the roots of the next generation. Like, it becomes a humbling experience. And I think I just realized that the more I love that you approach work with play, because I think if we did that, we would see the insanity in the repetition of things that we're doing that just don't make sense.
No, it's
We
slavery.
wouldn't do that when we're
It's
playing.
slavery to an idea that's not even ours. So you got out, you made that change. And I'm guessing that whilst you were in corporate, you were also learning about energy, and because you've been doing these things so that you could just flip from one to another. Did you spend a time doing both at one point, or was it literally like just, I'm leaving, I'm going to go this way?
I had been building programs around consciousness for a few years prior to, and I completed a master's degree during that time also, which
Okay.
gave
Oh
me
my goodness.
yeah. Well, so master's in conflict analysis and engagement. So I was juggling full-time, daughter, home, single parent, and a master's program. And that's when people say, well, I can't. I'm like, trust me, if you love what you're doing, you can juggle it all. And it does take cooperation in the household. I attribute my ability to do what I've done and create what I've created to my daughter, because she had to know that I had to hold space for other things, but not minimize or trivialize the importance of being present as a parent. So it was, where are we going with the masters?
About how you went from corporate into the energy world, and you were creating these programs even whilst you were in corporate about consciousness.
Yeah. So I was weaving in the work I was doing in conflict got me reconnected with spirituality and the idea that there's something else interconnecting everything. And what if in conflict, it really helped me understand that conflict is an access to greater consciousness. When we're in conflict, it's literally two opposing things coming together for the first time in a new way. If everything's vibration and information, excuse me, what is conflict but literally particles of light trying to do a new dance in a new way? So when I started recognizing the transformative capacity of conflict, it helped me know that, wow, if we can recalibrate resonance, if we can address the energetic essence that's weaving the composition of our 3D reality, we could change the way we change. We could change the way we engage conflict as much more of a, whoa, this is a new conversation we're entering into.
We would be like, hello, I'm curious, what's going to happen now? Rather than, oh, let's run away and hide.
Exactly. So it was a total reframe. And that had me understand that if I could work with the vibrational essence of things, we can start to generate new possibilities of a reality. So my study in energy was, I was meditating by the time I was 8. So it's like I was already steeped in a lot of information, not through reading. I was a deprived child in many ways. I didn't have many books. I would have to walk a mile one way to get to the library, which I would do.
Where were you
And
born, by the way? Where were you born and growing up?
I was born in Bombay, in Mumbai.
Wow.
My family's from Gujarat, India, and then I was 11 months old when we moved to the States. So I spent my first birthday in the U.S. in Cincinnati. So I grew up in Cincinnati.
Mm. No, I've been to Bombay. Anybody here been to Bombay?
It's a wild city, like it's insane.
It
My
is.
dad was from Ahmedabad, which has a much more, like, I enjoyed that energy. It was by a river, like it was definitely much more of a nature farming. My family, the roots of my family were farmers.
Right. So when you moved to the States, you know, what kind of upbringing did you have at that point? And your meditation, was that something that was taught to you by your parents, or had come from your tradition in India? Where did that come from?
I would say, you know, growing up in a Hindu family, there was always a holding space for the divine in everything.
Mm.
So the idea, and every morning and evening I would witness my parents, you know, they would be in prayer, meditation, connection, no matter how busy their schedule was. You know, these were people who woke up at 4 and didn't go to bed till after midnight. I mean, it was just very rigid just to keep food on the table, right? That's the kind of environment. Mom and dad working, very ran the household like a machine, like it had to run like a machine. So I would notice that no matter what the situation, every morning, every evening, always they would pray. So the idea of that sense of connection was instilled into me very early. It was one of the beautiful things that I take away from
Priority,
my
for sure,
tradition.
definitely.
Yeah. So meditation was a natural extension. And I was home alone. You know, I was a latchkey kid, frankly. So I was home alone a lot without any stimulation except the TV, radio, and what I could fabricate in my mind. I didn't have stuff. Later on in life, I had a computer because my brother got the computer. So when he was out, I taught myself to program with the one book that was on the shelf, and that changed the course of my life. So
Wow.
it was
So
like having to stimulate self.
that's amazing. I suppose when you come from a lack, there's a void there to fill, so you start finding things to fill it with, right? That's the vacuum of the lack is a total gift as well.
I realize that now. I would take any electronic that broke apart. We had this old clock that we got at the flea market, the wind up. When it finally broke, I took the whole thing apart. And that taught me, I realize now, taking that clock apart and just appreciating all the different pieces and springs and how it all fit together. It was an analogy for life. And the ion is, it's not about the parts, it's the energy of the machine that allows it to come to life. That's emergent reality. It's the energy in the clock, it's the motion of the machine that brings it to life. And it's the same energy of the parts that is the energy of the motion. And that's when I realized it's really one and the same. So why not connect with the energy of it all? And then that expresses in a new form.
You say such amazing things. So the energy of the machine is, the motion of the machine is what brings it into life. And I'm thinking that energy in motion in a human being is the emotion that brings us into life, because without it, we are AI programs. And here, you know, we have the energy in motion, and the motion is the life. And it's just beautiful. I love everything you're saying. And also, so not only were you, you know, resourceful and inventive and curious and ingenious and, you know, self-motivated, or, you know, self-propelled, I suppose. But also it says on your website that when you were 4 years old, you had this revelation about energy webs. Can you tell us about that? Because I think that's fascinating.
Yeah, and I've heard other people have similar experiences. I remember being in the backyard. It was one of my earliest memories. And then it happened subsequently every year. So this would have been probably around 3 or 4. I was in the backyard by myself, and my mom was in the kitchen, just, you know, just keeping an eye on me. And I remember being in the backyard, and I just loved the sun and the nature and the trees and butterfly. Like I remember just feeling all of that. And then all of a sudden I could see the the web. And people know what I'm talking about when you see the web and you're like, and then I started from that day on being able to receive. I remember the early things I would hear is everything's vibration. Everything is energy. You have a physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, energetic framework. You are music. You are a composition. All of these just beautiful ways of seeing, going back to my namesake, helping me see the world. And then through life experience, though, a lot of it I had to close down just to operate. I had to put myself in a protective box. I didn't realize, in order to operate with that sight that could not be recognized or seen. And I know a lot of us have to just kind of buffer and almost hide because it's such a difference from the way the rest of the world is operating. But it was in that moment I realized I thought everyone could see and communicate with animals and it was all one thing, until I would start sharing these things. And I realized not everyone does. My mom was gifted. She had premonitions early on and then shut down her abilities. But it does run in my family. My grandmother, who passed very young, allegedly in the village, she had predicted the date of her death and then actually extended it a year, because God came a knocking and she's like, I have 2 young kids, give me 1 more year. And it was literally a year later, and they held like a vigil or like a prayer, and she passed that night. So it's fascinating. So there's a lineage of having this kind of just capacity. I would say my daughter is off the chart and works with her abilities in her own way.
I totally feel you, completely feel you. And little did I know that whilst on one part of the world, you're experiencing this when you're 4 years old, and we're very similar in age. When's your birthday?
It's in August. It's August 17th.
Right, so we're about 6 months apart. So whilst on one side of the world, you're experiencing this when you're 4, I'm on another part of the world experiencing something incredibly similar at the age of 4. And I'm wondering how many other people were at that time experiencing or have been experiencing, but we didn't know about each other then, and we're only just learning this now, but we were having such a similar experience, exactly that. And it's incredible. It does feel very alone. I know exactly what you mean by you got to shut it down and somehow put it in a box. And there's no validation for that. Who do you talk to? You talk to people and they're like, they don't relate to you, look like you're completely weird, right? So it's like, okay, what to do with that sight, what to do with that ability to see into what most people refer to as the invisible world, but it's not invisible, it's just right there. It's so strange, isn't it? And I actually believe, Darshana, that all children have this ability, but it gets shut down for one reason or another. Then there's a gazillion different reasons, but it gets shut down. And it's very few, or the minority, who either can't be shut down because they're a program that cannot be shut down, they're a force that cannot be shut down, or that they were just in a conducive environment that somehow allowed that to blossom. And you were in a spiritual environment, I was in a spiritual environment, so perhaps that was part of the reason why we continued to blossom our abilities. But it's amazing that you're seeing. So you're seeing the resonance, you're hearing the resonance, you're in the frequencies, you're experiencing all of those different layers of creation and communicating with it. Absolutely amazing. And so
you know what it feels like, yeah.
I do. I wonder how many other people know what that feels like. And if you completely relate to this, like, let's party together. Let's get excited when we meet another brother or sister like ourselves. And it just adds to the, it adds to the manifestation that we're all experiencing right now, doesn't it? That collection, the collaboration, the unity, when we're all finding each other. And our genius in a way has taken some odd years to get to this point where you've gone through that contraction, gone through the meeting of the conflict in yourself. Hold on a minute, I believe in this system, but my inner knowing is in conflict because that's not my truth. And you rub up in that conflict and you find your way through it, which you did beautifully. And I think this is a time where so many people maybe just starting that journey, or, you know, we're on different spectrum, aren't we, of the journey of going, is starting to notice the conflict, or actually going, no, I'm fully out of it now, and welcome to the new earth. Like, this is what we came here for.
There is a definite feeling of that more and more. And the notes I was taking before, it's like in that bifurcation, you'll see, I wrote the words resonant realities. Like, we're starting to formulate those orbits of, you can feel the resonance of ease of exchange of ideas, or just love and play. Like, music has been something that's been very emergent in my expression lately, and just jamming out with amazing, just like-hearted, like resonant individuals. So like, we create these communities of resonant realities, because then we can construct new things, because we have new ways of cooperating together. The cooperation is literally algorithms. We have new ways that we can try to experiment and dance a little differently, because we know we don't need old patterns that no longer serve us moving forward. I mean, it's exciting. Like, new orbits are definitely forming, and then we see what's possible. We totally see what's
You're a real
possible.
expert at this, aren't you? Because having understood how to construct something one way, then you construct it a different way. And so when you say cooperating, as in operating together, it doesn't just mean, I mean, I love that you're jamming. What instrument do you play, by the way?
I'm percussion. So if I just pick something up, I'll make music with it. It just comes through me.
Yeah, I can't, I'm rubbish with music, but in my head, I'm like an electric guitar, like,
I can see that.
I can electric guitar jam, you know, air guitar jam with anyone. Anyway,
that's so much fun.
Just put that away. How embarrassing.
Oh, no, it's not embarrassing. I was doing that yesterday too. Don't worry.
Rocking out. Anyway, that's not what I wanted to say.
We have to play like that.
Anyway, that only started when I was pregnant with my son, Darshan, actually. I was in a backpackers in Brisbane, because I went to Australia to give birth, like, you know, the other side of the world from Brighton. I went to Brisbane, pregnant, 7 months pregnant. I'm in a backpackers. I walk in, Red Hot Chili Peppers is on the TV, and all the guys hanging out in the backpackers. And I just start air guitaring out of nowhere. And I'm like, what's happening to me?
Are you serious? That's liberation right there. Wow, so you actually chose to be there for delivery.
Oh yeah, I went and I wanted to get out of the matrix and the system and not let anyone touch me. I didn't have any, you know, what's it called, when they scan you and blood test you. I didn't have none of that. I had one appointment with a midwife and went, I'm never doing that again, because it was abusive. And I went to Australia to give birth, and I gave birth on the floor in total bliss. Anyway, that's not what I was going to do.
I love that.
I did it my way. I was like, no one's going to, you know, hijack this birth and hijack this experience. I'm doing it my way. And I just trusted. I just knew.
That's it right there. You just know, and you follow that, and you're like, whoa, that was incredible. And I couldn't have wanted it to go any other way. Like, I honor you for that. Wow.
Conspired to help me, because I chosen that, and the universe conspires. And anyway, but what I was going to, let me bring it back to what you were saying about cooperation when we operate together. Yes, it's about, okay, well, you know, let's do a business or a project or play music together. But it's more than that, isn't it? Because we're going back to that multidimensionalness of creation, which is what you have so brilliantly mapped, is how we create together with, I mean, how would you, what's your language for that? Because we're talking quantum mechanics here, aren't we, in a way?
Yeah. So the guide that I wrote, the Field Guide to Vibrational Logic, it's a body of...
Put it closer so everyone can see. The Field Guide to Vibrational Logic.
Yeah. So the body of knowledge is called ionation. So what I'm offering, it's actually like a new operating system. It has a whole foundational syntax and a way that we can relate to reality by, it's very simple. If we turn our ion, so there's multiple layers. The top layer, before we get down into the quantum, is If we turn our eye on, every ION word in the English language is actually, if we look at the etymology, like education, educate ion, imagine the ions are like those light particles. It's the pixels of the hologram, which science would agree it's all a hologram, and we're literally in our own construct, and we are perceiving a subset of the allness, right? It's like I use prisms a lot, like a prism, where each construct, we're like, you know, our own light body. Some might be very clear, others might have more striations and just more complexity, and it's all cool. And so what this offers is a lens, language, and logic for us to problem solve and actually engage in reality with a new perspective. So it's like what Einstein said, if we want to solve today's problems or situations, or basically the constructs of reality, we need a new perspective in order to put the puzzle pieces together in a new way. So what I realize, I have 4 very simple, like operating perspectives, like frequency creates form. And if we were to shift, well, a system is not simply a sum of its parts, it's the sum of its parts interactions, like that's the second one. So these 4 simple ways of relating to reality as just vibration or information allows us to cooperate, because we recognize when we get triggered, it's that emotional weight. Something there doesn't quite vibe or resonate. But what if then we had a way to kind of traverse where we get triggered and tripped up and unravel greater potential in that moment of interaction versus going down a reactive mode, a scripted mode? We can actually unscript, we can self-author moment to moment and allow that adaptive intelligence to no longer be artificial. So it's like a lens, language, and logic of vibration. I broke it down as if it's a software algorithm, beautifully divine. I can't even, but I have a perspective, and I'm just trying to like,
with your
amazing
mechanical
artistry that I can offer. And every ION word is just simply telling us what we're doing with the energy in the system. We are the system. We are each a part of that equation. So if every interaction with self and other had a little more grace, a little more ease, a little more awareness of where we might be manipulating power energy versus allowing flow and true grace and ease through self-sovereignty, we can stand up a beautiful new civilization, because then we're literally co-opting, cooperating, creating from a space of true flow state resonance. And that's really what this is. It's a 0-point technology to let us be in flow state moment to moment and create new systems and structures that are emergent and organic and evolutionary in their potential. It's an innovative tool to change the way we change.
Super empowering as well. And I love all your language that you use. You're totally like speaking my language, but from a very engineering perspective. But we got the language sharing here, which is really nice, right? I love that. And you said something, co-authoring your story. And I'm like, and you said earlier, cooperating. So it's like we can do that with others, but we're doing it with ourselves. So co-authoring with your own, let's call it divine intelligence, because I'm loving that we're using that word a lot in this session, intelligence, and or your own genius or your own divine will, whatever it is, that expression that wants to come through. And consciously, by understanding, and what you're teaching people is understanding the construct, the interface that we are meeting on the ionic level or the subatomic or quantum level, breaking it down, breaking it down, breaking it down to pure consciousness, pure isness, right? But there's a breakdown, isn't there, of the size of the particles as it gets from big, solid to smaller and smaller and smaller, so that is malleable. That's a constant change state of consciousness, the isness, the ion. And then how we are, because I love how you said co-authoring, because you're co-authoring your life from your will, your divinity, your expression with this superconscious substance, the ionosphere, and co-authoring and co-creating and cooperating with that for greater harmony. So you're really engaging like the intellectual level here, but also just that real, you know, breaking it down, practical, structural, molecular level. The science that's right, you're making it very practical.
That's very true. That was my objective, was to break it down in a way like, so I've got a whole, like the body of knowledge and how to bring it all together where we can. I wanted to, may not have it in here, but the visual that you were alluding to, it's in another stack that I have, was our ability to project a collective shared reality from a new place, a new set point of inner connection. And I really think that's the shift of how we can change the way we change, is it is about self-connection. And then there's a natural expression and emergence that happens from there. That's a piece of a greater cosmic, beautiful puzzle that's trying to emerge. And it is about inner synchronization and self-love first.
Yeah.
And then we can cultivate.
That's why I teach that part, because the rest of it, like, I get it, but I ask myself, like, what needs to happen, like on the fundamental level. You talked as well a lot about the essence and coming back to the essence, distilling the essence. And I asked myself, at which point can I affect most change? And it was like at the essential level, at the foundational level, which if we wanted, like you said, if we want a new reality, you can't come at it with the same old mindset. If you want a different crop, you can't use the same old soil. You have to create something completely different. You have to create a new foundation, a new bedrock, a new soil, new conditions, completely new, for a new reality to be born, or to something else to grow, right? A new crop to grow, a new idea to grow. You need a different foundation. So I was like, well, and the universe just guided me this way. I didn't know it was self-love. I just knew that's what I was choosing. It was about consciousness. And I got guided this way because I made that choice. And I kept receiving and saying yes to things and saying, okay, show me. And I ended up learning this incredible self-love method. And like you, like, how can you define love? Had to break it down, had to give it structure so that people can understand it, which is what you've done with what I think is like the super consciousness, the quantum field. You've broken it down, gone back to the essence, gone back to the building blocks, and be like, we start here. This is how you build.
That's it.
Isn't it brilliant? I just love that.
Thanks for recognizing its potential and kind of what my vision was to at least have something that we can stand upon and go, this makes a little sense. Let's see what happens and exchange this way. And then,
world, right? It makes more sense in that dysfunctional, self-serving world.
Yeah.
Where can people find your book? Because it looks like you've got a lot of information, a lot of genius. I love that word, by the way. Information is one of my favorite action words, because it's inform. Now I can see it differently. Information, like what we take in, informs us, right? What comes in creates form, but you're adding a whole another dimension to it, which I didn't see before, which is inform at ion.
Yep.
At the ion level. It's like, it's beautiful. So that's one of my favorite words. But how can people find out more about you and your book? Can we buy it?
You know, I'm only offering it in the workshops right now because it really is a technical manual and it makes no sense without the context. So what I realized is, it is self-published. So I'm glad I went that route because I got to design it the way I wanted to. Turn Your Ion, turnyouron.com is the website. I do 60-minute virtual sessions to get people into flow state. We can do the traditional energy work. And then I can also apply the ionation framework to get people really unstuck if there's a particular area of life or you're just already in your jam and you're like, how do I now integrate this multi-dimensional potential? The field, once you open up the field, you know, once you ask a question, information starts to come through that can help you design whatever it is you want to create, whatever your artistry is. So I can support people who are in that state of, whoa, I know now what my essence is. I feel more of it. What do I do with it? How do I embody it? That's where I can support that expansion and integration of greater degrees of your potential. So I do virtual sessions. I'll be hitting the road. I'm selling everything. I'm starting my act 3 of life, and I'm just going to hit the road and see what happens and take this along with me. Ideally, groups of 3 to 12. We can come in, I'll come in and facilitate a transformative experience. I promise you, you'll come in one way, you'll leave another way, and be able to generate new possibilities in life. So I'm looking for groups of 3 to 12, willing to travel around and see what goes from there. But turnyourion.com, and then Instagram is Unscripted Way, is my old brand, Unscripted Way. And on YouTube, you can find more about excerpts of the book and some of the teachings as I'm beginning to promote it a little more and share the work. Is on YouTube, it's Turn Your Eye On. Turn Your Eye On.
You need to have everything turn your eye on so people can just find you, right? Turn your
I wasn't doing Instagram much before when I had my Reiki practice, and it already had some followers. So it's like, it's a weird switch over, but I think you're right.
It makes life a lot easier when you've got one name that everybody can like Google or Yahoo, and you pop up everywhere.
Point taken.
So people want to, because you're doing these things live, you're doing these collective sessions live, literally with people, which is a real bonus because I'm sure we're all fed up with doing everything online right now. And you're going to go on the road. So literally people just need to get in touch with you and maybe even help you out by getting a group of them together, because if there's a group already there, you're not going to say no to that, are you?
No, I would love to be invited into spaces where we can generate an evolutionary conversation. Yeah, I would love that.
Amazing. How long does it take? Is it like a day or a weekend or?
We can have a breakthrough. I would say what I want to do is at least 6 hours, but ideally if we could have 12 to 14 hours over 2 days, that would be ideal, at least for the first phase.
It totally sounds like a 2-day thing that you'd want to do, because it's so deep what you do. And so like, I can see it's totally brilliant. It's not something you're just going to get instantly, and to really deep dive and immerse into that would be amazing. So people find you at turnyourion.com, yes?
Correct.
And they can send you an email at turnyourion. I'm going to keep saying it, turnyourion.com, and send you a message and have their group of people ready and waiting. And you can do that session. It sounds absolutely amazing. And so what it is, I guess, do you want to tell us any more about that map behind you, that construct that you've created there?
Yeah, so ionation was an 8-year constant, like it's like a Q&A with the universe. And eventually it culminated into this visual. It was a lot of circles at first in flowcharts. So it was 8 years of constantly downloading things like, I mean, this was just a few weeks back, and that's, yeah, it gets really insane what comes through, but it really does become like the breakdown from a quantum perspective of how everything weaves together. So the body of knowledge is it's my artistry around change, conflict, consciousness, and communication all in one model. And then it's the lens, language, and logic of vibrational intelligence. So in like a 2-day, I just facilitated my first pilot group, and it was phenomenal. We jump into the idea of emergence. Like, what is this emergent reality? How do we facilitate innovation and emergence, which is evolution? And then the languaging kind of does its own magic. As soon as we plug into every ION word, it starts to unravel what becomes possible. So it's an immersive experience where we relate to reality as pixels of information. And once that happens, we can unravel in so many different directions. And it depends on what the group's intentions are too. If it's to problem solve, we can get into root cause analysis, systems design, or consciousness liberation. We can get you into flow state and in the multidimensional realms. Like, it really depends on the group's intentions and the composition, like where people are currently in their comfort and understanding of this realm of multidimensionality.
I think that's absolutely fascinating. And personally, I love it because I'm not so engineering minded. Like, I see big pictures of things and I see how things work. And like you, see the energy, very much so. And I get how it works, but mapping it, I'm not so good at. Like the structure part. And so the fact that you've mapped it and structured it and broken it down, I just think is absolutely brilliant and genius. And I love that stuff. And I would just want to come to your workshop and just understand more about what you understand, because I'd be reading your energy field and I'd be reading your brain and I'd be reading your genius, which I'm doing now actually, and it's absolutely brilliant. I'd be like, yeah, I'm in the workshop and it's happening and I want to have this experience. But at the same time, I'd be like, oh my goodness, what you know is amazing. And and it just is, it does sound absolutely brilliant. So if you're heading anywhere near the south of France, pop over.
I have a feeling I would love to be everywhere because I have not seen the world. So I will let you know when that happens. And Luis over in Portugal, and now we've got Australia, like all these points. I've got someone in Italy. I'm like, wow, this could really be a thing. I might enjoy this next phase.
It's going to be a thing. You just have to create it now with that map of yours. And also, I'm going to be in the US next year. I've been waiting for the right time or the call or the open door, because I do so many things online, with people in the US, like yourself right now over in Atlanta. You're in Atlanta?
Yeah, Atlanta. Yeah.
Atlanta, just so anybody wants to find you, you're in Atlanta. Go find DARSHANA now. But yeah, I'm coming over in person next year. I've been invited to speak at a conference with a couple of really good friends of mine. Laura Eisenhower is one of them, and Jen McCarthy is another. And we're speaking at this big conference in Texas. I'm super excited about that. And I'm like, let's do a tour. I want to go. And
you should totally do that.
I'm going to link up with you and be like, let's do something.
I'm with you on that. We could certainly dream something up. And I think next year would be incredible because I think the world's going to be in a really different place by then. So,
tell us about that. Okay. Tell us about because you talked a little bit about the bifurcation and people choosing the reality of, let's just call it, the AI or the natural intelligence, your innate intelligence, or your constructed intelligence. And how do people, obviously, to help people go from one state of being into another, out of the sticky spider web like matrix into their own divine co-creation, cooperation matrix, they can find you and you're going to help them do that. But what do you see happening for the next, few years?
I'm glad you're asking this because there is a bigger picture that I'm working on. Like, organic teams have been forming over the last few years. It was April of 2019. There's a video. I did a New Earth kickoff and put out the blueprint of what I was seeing was going to happen in the next 6 to 10 years and how we can orient to allow our divine potential to come through, to support us through these evolutionary phases. I will say the biggest thing that I'm witnessing right now in the team, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Pause. The video, can they find that? The blueprint video that you did in 2019?
Yeah, so on Turn Your Eye On, if you scroll down through the videos, if you click videos, there's a New Earth kickoff and it'll have the date, like the date in the title is April 2019, New Earth kickoff, I think is what the video is called.
Sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted people to be able to, because I'm going to go and look for that video. I want to see what you said about the blueprint. That's super exciting.
It'll give an overview of kind of the original just hits that I was getting and others kind of around us were feeling as the momentum was building towards. At the time, we didn't know 2020 was going to go down the way it was, but we kept feeling like some shift was happening. I will tell you, getting plugged back in now with more of the technology conversations, the biggest thing that I would let people know to be aware of is when we talk about artificial intelligence, there's two streams of this. We can use technology for the beautiful betterment of humanity, but we need to put humanity back in technology. That's currently missing, because look who's architected the systems. We could use it for so much good. There's so many solutions in the wrong hands right now, or just hands that don't realize the power that's in them. And then what's the current trajectory, though, that I think is inevitable because of the timing, is the rollout of AI in its current form will mean massive job displacement. I'm talking millions within the next few years of even jobs you wouldn't consider, like attorneys. Yes, your job is also on the line. If it can be automated, it's going to be automated. And we won't need, if it can be scripted like a human brain, it will be automated very soon, because companies don't care about workforce displacement. So I think we, like kind of, the medical thing we went through, we're going to see this now on the global workforce stage, is we have to be sovereign creators now and come together and create new things in new ways for the betterment of our total civilization. The machines are going to go automate a lot of jobs, including the Amazon warehouses. If you've been tracking what's been happening there, they've been studying the employees like lab animals, essentially. They've been noticing or tracking every single movement. How do they problem solve in a warehouse that is not optimized? This was by design, so that now they can plug and play robots to literally solve any problem in a massive warehouse. Very, very manipulative how this intelligence was gathered. Massive workforce displacement on the horizon. But I think we have all the solutions in place, at least potentials that we can experiment with to stand up new systems that make much more economic sense. And that can help build a thrivable economy in a new world. But I'm concerned about the workforce displacement that's not even being addressed in the conversational landscape. It's at the levels in the boardrooms, and they're not really sharing. But if you track it, so I have a deep concern of the workforce in pretty much all countries very soon.
If that's happening in products and services, is automation. And then you say that's going to happen with people like lawyers, bank tellers. What about doctors and nurses, where they become programmed machines with programmed responses that fund the people who made them?
Pretty much where we are right now.
Pretty dark, pretty fast, doesn't it?
Most certainly. And if we look at the big heads have been warning us about this for a while, but I think until divine feminine starts to step in and put new parameters in place around really being parameterless, to me, it's why not just have greenfield vision of what's now possible, and who do we want to be as humans on this divine planet, and how can we steer the ship in a whole new direction collectively? It's got to be, I think, a global conversation. But there's enough inspired people all over the planet, look at us, who are talking in the same way and seeing what's possible when we just step out of the old construct and go, that doesn't make sense. We can build something, at least try to experiment in new ways to build something that makes more sense now.
What do you think is going to happen when people don't? Like, if people are prolonging that decision because they're scared, and you know what it's like, we want change, we want the alternative, we don't want that reality, or some people do, they think it's better because I don't know why, but they do. But what if people are like, well, I'm comfortable in this reality, and I'm comfortable being told what to do, and I'm uncomfortable having to be self-sovereign, be self-reliant, be self-sufficient, be, self, really, just self.
That's a very good way to put it. I believe then self is willingly participating in a system of oppression, a system that might be giving you what you need, but it's at the expense of your truer experience of what it can be to be a flourishing, actualizing human on a planet right now that doesn't nurture self-actualization. But what if we could? So if you're willing to choose not to actualize, to me, that's still, it's divine will choosing to remain where it is. And I think there'll be systems that support that consciousness, and other systems that must be created to support the consciousness that we're experiencing now and the new possibilities that we just want to birth and feel as possibilities. So I think there may be two constructs that start to emerge. And I think that's part of the bifurcation, is acknowledging. And I don't know, like, when I think about everything as energy, what that means, I don't know. I don't know what that is from a 3D experience. Not sure yet. I really don't know.
I was exploring that earlier today with a friend of mine, Kate Magic. She was interviewing me and we talked about exactly that and what that might look like. And you're right. No, I don't think any of us really know, but you can see it. You can see what's happening. You've seen what's happened in the past. You've seen what's happened to get us to now. And it's really a continuation of that, an expansion of that, isn't it?
You nailed it right there. I want to read something that when I was preparing my energy this morning that came through around that the idea of a threshold, that there's something that we feel like we're kind of going through, right? We're going through in the infinity loop. It would be like going through the point where then you're on the other side. And I think we're in that threshold now. And I love looking at the etymology and definitions. It's a point of entry or beginning. And the etymology, or it was one of the other definitions, the magnitude or intensity that must be exceeded for a certain reaction, phenomenon, result, or condition to occur, to be manifested. Using some of the words you were using earlier about conditions, we're generating a new vibration to be a new conditional context for a collective orbit of resonance to then be able to create the content of life in. It's context first, content emerges from that. So I think right now, for me, it feels like my cells are like, just let me explode. Like there's just something more that wants to emanate and radiate. And it feels like it's the word threshold really resonates. It's something has to be exceeded, and vibrationally, we know it's, octaves. And so we're literally having that compression breakthrough into another octave. And I think that's part of that bifurcation, is that puncture through that we're feeling. We kind of maybe feel cocooned right now. And then that emergence, I don't know what it looks like and what it feels like, but I can feel it brewing, that we're on a threshold, a precipice to some new emergent phenomenon that will move through us. I have no idea what it is.
Oh, absolutely. Or birthing the new earth is another way of saying it, right? That's what people mean when we say birthing the earth, is what you've just said. And also what everything's just tied up in my head with that one statement you just made about what you were talking about with conflict and conflict resolution and embracing the conflict. If there was ever a time of world conflict, we're in it, everyone together in that conflict, in that rub. And something else that is a major, because of the amount of conflict right now, that's the energy, that's the motion that you talked about as well. Mm-hmm. Generating a lot of friction, a lot of emotion, a lot of energy as a catalyst within that conflict for the energy of propulsion into this new relationship with ourselves and with the world, with each other, this new reality. It's just absolutely incredible. I love how you describe everything. I really can see it when you're saying it.
You nailed it right there. I know we need to close out. Emotion really is what breaks through the box of our 3D. Emotion is the wheel of creation. You said it earlier in your way. That's what I had to realize. If I'm not, and the world teaches us not to feel and to be embodied in that feeling. I was told very early my feelings didn't matter. And so that stifles our ability to change or to want to change. Did you know that Tylenol shuts off empathy? Acetaminophen shuts off empathy. We are wired not to fire our emotions. And the more we feel emotion, especially as divine feminine, whether you're in a masculine or feminine body, the divine feminine says, hey, wait, this doesn't make sense. Something's got to change. Wait, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't feel good. And I think that's where we have to lean in to the embodiment of being. Emotions are the interconnection. It is where compassion comes from. The compass ion is the orientation to emitting of that ion. It is the orientation to the free radical that we want to then work with. Thank you for giving so many words as well.
No, and I'm thinking of the ocean as well, Mother Ocean and the emotion. And absolutely, I just want to tell everybody, reiterate what you said. Having feelings, your emotions matter. Everyone, your emotions matter. What you feel matters, because it will literally turn into solid manifestation of matter. So feel, get all your emotions out, and then use it to channel and focus and create. And that gives up people a lot of faith. I think what you've said, just trying to wrap this conversation up, even though it's, it could go on and on and on. We're creating on that, what you're calling the ionic reality, creating it in the energy field, creating it in our beliefs, in the vision, in the inner seeing, in the inner knowing, in the inner compass, resonating, going, this is the real reality. This is really what life is all about. This is what makes me expand and sing, and creating from that perspective. And at some point, and it will find its momentum and it will become denser the more people collectively dream the same dream, so to speak, feel into the textures and the colors and the tastes and the sensations and everything that comes with that reality. The more we all do that, the more levity it gets, right? The more solid it becomes, the more real, so to speak. So I want to say to people that are doubting and going, well, I don't know if this is real. Maybe it's all just a nice fairy tale, but actually this other stuff over here, the scary stuff, is more real. No, only because you're choosing. And so where do we put our point of consciousness? What do we choose? And I think you're a fantastic bridge for people to support them to make that choice. And the how to and the structure that you give, I just think is an absolute blessing. And I love you so much. And thank you for going through the journey that you've done in order to be in this position of teaching and sharing and facilitating now. I can't wait till our paths meet again. I can't wait to hear about your when people start coming and calling you up in Atlanta and knocking on your door and saying, can I have that workshop? And I almost forgot, you need to tell us, or Zane will tell me off. Zane of Higher Self Expo will tell me off. Tell us about because you're talking again, if people want to hear more from you in 9 days.
Yeah, the Higher Self Expo. Thanks for bringing that back around. I'm so excited about that event and delighted to be a part of it. So thank you again for being a part of that event. And so the Higher Self Expo, I'll be speaking on how to change the way we change. My segment is currently planned for, it's Sunday, my time, Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, like 8:40, like, yeah, I'm in the Eastern evening time slot on that Sunday. But higherexpo.com for more info and to register.
Right, that's about 2 o'clock in the morning, my time.
Yeah, I got slotted in the beginning of the Australian time zone and the end of the Americas. So yeah, it's going to be off for you. But I love that it's a global event. How exciting! How exciting! 24 hours. It's incredible. 36 speakers.
That's fantastic. And Zane is a brilliant, I have to say, he's a wonderful guy. He's very funny. I enjoy him very much. And so people can go to higherselfexpo.com and literally go and register for this. It's free. You can watch Darshana. You can watch everybody else if you want to, or just Darshana because she's really cool. And go and register for free, everyone. It's going to be really a lot of fun. Right. So we want to send people, basically, we can't buy your book. I hope that you write at some point, no pressure, but to take that little book and to turn it into something bigger, because I would love to read that book. I bet it's just going to be brilliant.
I appreciate that. Thank you for that.
Find you at turnyourion.com. Anything else that we need to tell everybody before I let you go?
No, because, I'll keep talking. So I am so grateful for the space you've held, for the time we've been together, because I just feel like I'm in such great company. And thank you for that. It's just wonderful to talk to you and to continue exploring where we're headed as a civilization. I think we can make it beautiful as we come together in new ways. Thank you. Thank you again.
Oh, Thank you. Total pleasure. And we'll talk, because Divine Feminine, I think I'm going to do a day of the Divine Feminine too, for everyone that's been watching me on YouTube. And they saw the solstice event, Day of the Divine Feminine, where I had 30 speakers live for 9 hours. I know that that's going to happen again. I just know it. I can feel it brewing. There's another one that's going to come. And I absolutely would love you to be on that with us and go into that whole arena in much more depth as well.
I would love to. I would really love to. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you. So much love to you, Darshana. Mwah. And we'll see you again.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.